But I believe that emotions are information because they're telling us something about ourselves. And a lot of times, like in the pursuit of becoming better, whatever area it may be, I feel like in doing so, we're going to get opportunities to grow. And when you know someone deeper, have kids, a wife, they know how to push your buttons. And it's almost like they become sandpaper to you. But in the sense of like they're helping shape off the rough edges. Instead of trying to fix the behavior, the better route is to see what's the root underneath it. Because a lot of times anger is just, and I was just sharing how I have my YouTube, my podcast contents, community service contents. If you're curious, but you're not sure where to start. But within that, I've started a new community group online. If you sign up for it, you can apply to be a part of what's called the Red Print Hot Seat. And that's essentially just like a free coaching experience. Because the idea of coaching is very abstract to a lot of people. And the best way to tell them about it is to show it. So I offered that for you. And that's kind of what we got there. You're like, yeah, I'm down to be in the hot seat. Let's do it. But what is one problem that if you had the solution to it, it would change everything for you?
One thing is, and this is going to get real personal real quick.
Great. I will go as deep as you want to.
My one thing that I struggle with is my temperament. I can get from 0 to 100 real quick. Mm-hmm. And so my question is, how do you change behavior? Because it's really easy once you have those habits and reactions adopted. It's really hard to not do them anymore. Yeah. You know what I mean? And your emotions, a lot of times, not all the time, but a lot of times, they conflict with the logic. Like, you know what you're doing, it's not okay, but that doesn't matter to your emotional state. If you're hungry, just to put an example, if you're hungry and you know that you don't need to eat that cookie, you need to eat a salad, for example, or more protein, or whatever the case is. And when you feel hungry and you just feel like so desperate for food, because let's say you just skip a meal and you're super hungry and you just grab that cookie. Like, how do you stop yourself and don't react to those? How do you change that behavior? Or because life is so busy. Like, I know what the answer is. Like, you're supposed to prevent those things. But what happens when life happens and you're like stuck in that 1 second decision and you don't even have time to react? You just go based on your old habits that you know they're not good, but you still do it because you just lost control at that moment. Who are you? Are you know what I mean? Are you your emotions? Are you the logic? Are you, like, what are you? Like, how do you separate that? Or do you put it all together? I don't know if I'm making sense of the question.
You're making sense. Yeah, this is great. Yeah, and first, thank you for going that deep that quickly. I'm assuming it's probably maybe at your kids or spouse. That's relatable.
Yeah, because I grew up with boys. Me and my brother, my dad has brothers, my grandfather. So boys are rougher. And so I have all girls. I have 3 girls and a wife. So they're all girls at home. And to them, raising my boys is, oh my gosh, they get so scared that it's not that a big deal. Because when I was growing up, it was like me and my brother were fighting and wrestling each other, very aggressive because we're boys. But girls are like, they're princesses and things like that. So they like dresses and they're just more. It's a different approach that you have to get to with women. And I didn't grow up with that at all. So I'm like, sometimes I could like cross the line, if you can say that, and they're just like you hurt them unintentionally, and then now you're like, oh,
for
like I
sure.
made
So
them
then
cry.
you're trying to figure out.
So
Yeah,
how do you? So going back to that question, if I could have a question answered, it's because this is another thing. It's no amount of knowledge it's gonna change until you put it into
yeah,
practice. So it doesn't, and this
good.
is what I always say, what does it matter that you know how to read if you don't read books?
Yeah, that's good.
What does it matter that you watch so much YouTube videos about
Mhm.
exercise if you don't hit the gym? Like you
Yeah,
actually have to do it
you have to
to become
Yeah,
better. So I always want to put that in perspective because I don't know the answer to that question, because if not, I would already put it in practice. And I have tried different things, but nothing has actually worked. Like we were talking earlier, when on our first warm up,
yeah, I don't.
we were talking about Alex Formosi
Yeah,
and how something clicked. Nothing has clicked in order to change that behavior.
no, that's good. One thing that I found really interesting in the study and the work in the process of getting to where I'm at with helping people is that emotions, depending on where you come from in your background, sometimes emotions almost get demonized as like we're not supposed to feel things. But I believe that emotions are information because they're telling us something about ourselves. And a lot of times, like in the pursuit of becoming better, whatever area it may be, I feel like in doing so, we're going to get opportunities to grow. And those opportunities come from, it's almost, I guess another way to put it is like when you know someone deeper, have kids or wife, they know how to push your buttons. And it's almost like they become sandpaper to you, but in the sense of like they're helping shape off the rough edges. And what I mean by that is like they're exposing areas of you, of us, I say you, but like collectively, in the instead of trying to fix the behavior, the better route is to see what's the root underneath it. Because a lot of times anger is just like
The layer.
the top layer of what's really going on. And I think that's a really good place to dive into and think of. And a good way to do that is kind of what I like to call like exposing the coping pattern. It's a way to say it. So like when you experience these moments of some, like you blow up on your kids or you're like blow up on your wife or whatever that situation happens, like what do you usually do when this problem shows up? Like when you get the opportunity to be angry, like what usually happens?
It gets me like, I don't like the problem. Usually what happens is like, I guess I don't know if it's a misunderstanding or what happens, but I just get really angry and I start raising my voice. That's the main thing. And so I don't know how to ask nicely. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I don't know if that answers the
No, it does.
questions.
And I can kind of ask it a little bit differently. So things happen that cause you to react aggressively or whatever, like your temper flares.
Yeah.
And when it flares, what do you do in the moment and after the moment? Do you try to compensate for it? Do you try to control it? Do you try to like,
It depends. So that's what I was saying. Sometimes if I catch myself, I will think to myself, like you were saying earlier, this is a test. This is like a perfect moment for me to practice, because if you don't have those moments, then how do you supposed to, get better?
Yeah.
So you need, like when you go to the gym, it's the same pattern. You have to push even more weight in order to get stronger. So you need to have those times where they're pushing your buttons in
Yeah.
order to practice the person that you want to be. In this case, would be a more person with more patience. And so I do think about that. But there's times
Mhm.
where I just don't. I jump, I skip that step, and but it goes under my radar. I didn't even realize that I was getting angry or
Right.
something was bothering me. It's too late.
Yeah.
And then you scream, and then it's, oh crap. And it's a very good analogy that I heard from a teacher that she
Mhm.
was teaching the kids not
Mhm.
to say mean things to their peers. And she was saying mean things to your peers is, or to your friends, it's like pushing all the taste out of the
Yeah.
paste tube.
You can't believe
So
that's
you
so
have
true.
to be careful of how you say it.
Mhm.
But the thing is, sometimes you just go, it's so easy just to,
Yeah.
say it or get it out of your chest. But then the aftermath, that's the issue. So it's
Yeah.
like, how do you stop?
How do you prevent it?
How you prevent it?
Have
Or not
you
even prevent it, because if you
Yeah.
prevent it, then you take yourself out of that situation, you go for a walk or whatever, but then you are in that moment, and then it's like seconds of that you have to make that decision to bite your tongue, and it's so hard. And but it's hard because there's a habit that it hasn't died, that
Mhm.
there it's just an automatic, it's not even kind of like up to you almost.
Yeah.
So how do you,
That's tough.
that's my question.
So what I'm hearing, and correct me if I'm wrong, there's times that you're aware and you're able to stop yourself from getting there. And then there's times you're not. Can you recall what's different about the two situations?
Yeah, so I think the situation where I lose control is because I'm already overwhelmed with other things. So it's like I can't handle another thing.
Mhm.
So it's kind of like the drop of water that made the water spill out of
Yeah,
the glass kind of thing.
for sure. What, because obviously you can't, and it's going to be inevitable that at some point you're going to be overwhelmed and you're going to spew. Because unfortunately, we are human. And as humans, we have moments.
And that's the biggest thing that I have
And it's a both and.
is I feel like we're like an experiment,
Yeah.
like a science experiment, where it's like the scientist who made us is like, you have emotions. I'm gonna put emotions on this being, but I'm gonna put logic. But the emotions and the logic are gonna contradict themselves. Now let's see what happens. This will be fun to watch.
That's funny. That's funny. That's a funny perspective to have. And I think too, which I feel like there's another layer to it, that I also feel like we're spiritual beings, and then the spiritual comes to play. And I know that for some that they hear that word and it's off-putting, but I feel like there's also a spiritual aspect that comes to play,
I think so too. I think so too.
that we're created beings. So at the end of the day, we have been created. Like these bodies that we're in right now are created by what I believe a divine creator,
Mhm.
God. And in doing so, like in our design, the spiritual aspect of us, we have like direct connection to God. So in doing so, if we can stay in communion or like connection and relationship to God, then it helps us navigate those times. And again, this is probably getting real. If it gets too abstract for you, let me know.
No. I have a perspective that I think is congruent with what
Yeah,
you're
for
saying.
sure.
So yeah, please
For sure.
continue.
For sure. For sure. So yeah, so it's like that concept of the more I'm walking with God, the more I'm walking out his attributes. Like from like I'm slower to anger if I'm walking with God closer. And if I'm, whatever it may be, life happens or the day happened, and
What do you think is that? Like, I agree with you, but what do you think that is?
I think because it's such a difficult question there, and it's a great question. But I would say I think it's because this portion, like this world, the world we're in now, like there is good and bad forces at play. And I feel like there's a fight happening in this world, in the spiritual realm. Like I think the spiritual reflect, like the physical reflects the spiritual.
Is it outside or inside of us?
I think it's both. I think there's spiritual forces outside of us working at play, and there's spiritual forces inside of us working at play. And I think that if we've been, from my belief and my understanding, if we've been filled with a Holy Spirit, then therefore we have the ability, being connected to God, to walk out a better option. But also at the same time, we're still fallen. We're still a fleshly being. Part of us is still a fleshly being that's like still up to making, whether it's the wrong decision or bad decisions there. Yeah, no, I think that's a great question. But yeah, I'd be curious, like which.
So what I like to make, like, I'm very square, like black and white. This happens because of this. And I read a book. It's called The 7 Habits. Are you familiar with it? Stephen Covey.
Yeah.
And one of his things is we're made out of, like, human beings are 4 things put together, which is mental, physical, emotional, and spiritual. So you can, the way I understand it was like, oh, mental, okay, your brain, how you think,
Yeah.
your logic side, that makes sense. Your physical, walking, grabbing things, clothes, a house, you need a roof over your head, like the material things that you need. Like, I understand that. Emotional, don't understand that fully, but I felt it. I experience it enough where it's okay, like anger or happiness or everything in between. Like, I get that. And then, but then I was like, how do you explain spiritual? Like, how do you, because if you don't know how to explain it, then how do you work on it? And so it took me, again, and that's my part of what I was telling you. Like, I think I always been a philosopher. I just never, I never read a book about philosophy, or I didn't know what it was until recently.
Yeah.
And so now that I read about philosophy, now I can explain myself better. But basically, when I have questions like this, I'll reflect a lot and I think a lot until I get the answer, like something that makes sense to me. It doesn't mean that it's right or true, but something that I can explain to other people and they're like, oh, okay, that makes sense. The spiritual part, I think it's like the glue.
Okay.
So it's that what keeps everything together. It keeps the mental, the emotional, and the physical all together. And it's kind of like the glue that you don't see. It's like and that's why it's really hard to work on it. So it's kind of like your joints. So you can work your muscles all you want, but if you don't have good joints, then you're going to have problems, right? Everything, it's that thing that keep us together.
No, that's
so
good.
We don't fall apart.
No, I think that's a really interesting way to put it. And I'd also say I feel like what is extremely challenging for a lot of people that lean towards more logic when it comes to the spiritual is because at some point I feel like we have to reach a place where there's a mystery and there's like almost like a mysticism to the spiritual realm that you can't explain it. And I think that's really hard for a lot of those that lean into logic and like you said, like a black and white thinking, because I do feel like to a degree, a lot of things are black and white, but then there is this really interesting gray area. I feel like and even the concept of like faith or like believing in God, believing in the higher power. But I believe God, I believe there was a creator. And in believing that, there becomes the aspect of faith. And I think that when we think of the term faith, a lot of times it's used from like a more religious sense, but more so like faith is the ability to hope for something that isn't seen. And it's like to think about the things that can't really be explained.
I'm going to throw a curveball.
Yeah.
So I have a problem with that
Okay.
because I don't believe I know. And one thing I don't want to get into is what I know or what I seen. I'm not ready to talk about,
Okay.
but I seen some stuff.
Mm.
So that are not from this world,
Okay.
good and bad, both.
Okay.
And the one thing from the Bible that really strikes me is that hits hard. It's when Jesus says to Thomas, bless you, no, bless who have the belief and have not seen.
Mhm.
So if you haven't personally seen anything and you believe, bless you. Because
Bro.
I seen
Yeah.
and I don't have any doubt in my mind that stuff is real. And so that's one of my problems. Like,
For sure.
I don't believe I know.
Yeah.
I know. And that's a whole different spec.
Hey,
That
honestly, I'm here for it.
that's
I think that no, you're spot. There's definitely I've seen some things as well. I'd be curious to hear more about it, but no, I know that you said that you're not ready to share those things, so I totally understand.
yeah.
That's really interesting. I think that, but I guess I would say to that, before you saw, what's their belief?
I was a kid.
You were a kid?
Yeah. And until older, different things happened to me. One time it happened to me where I don't even remember happening to me. My family told me that I was under a table. They were having dinner. My uncles, my aunts used to go every Sunday to go visit my grandparents. And so I was a little kid. I'm the oldest out of all the cousins.
Yeah.
And so I was like probably 3-4 years old. And I was under the table playing. One of my uncles has passed away when I was 1 year old or something like that. And I came out of the underneath the table. It was a big table. I was underneath that table and I came out running so scared. My hair was like spiked. I was like white as a ghost. As something scared the crap out of me. And I said, his name was Juan Carlos, my uncle, Juan Carlos, my uncle. They told that I was saying that I saw him, and it scared the crap out of me. And I don't even remember that, but that's what they said.
Yeah.
That's what happened to me. And then later on, when I was like 6 or 8, other things happened to me. And so throughout the years, I think some people are more sensitive to see those things than other people. So it's just easier to dismiss it or ignore it. Or if you're not sensible enough to see or feel those things, it's easy to just like,
Yeah.
like that's not real or whatever.
For sure.
And it takes a lot. And so the people that have faith and believe without seeing, bless those people, because it's I can't imagine believing without seeing what I seen.
Yeah. No, that's so fair. No, I think that's good. I like how we took a very different rabbit trail from this conversation, but I'm glad we went there. I think that was really interesting. And getting back to, okay, so you say that you don't necessarily, the statement was you don't need to believe because you're correct. Okay. Now,
I don't know if that's good or bad, but it's like I just don't have a doubt in my mind. I know.
how does this knowing shape your practice, shape how you walk out?
Oh,
Everything.
I have,
Just
I have,
everything. Life in
I
general.
have fear of God.
Yeah.
Yes, totally. I I go to church every Sunday, and I know that it doesn't matter how strong I get. It doesn't matter how perfect I am. There's, like you said, there's like a, I don't know if there's like a spiritual war or whatever, but I know there's like bad spirits or energy or
Yeah.
however you want to call it out there.
Yeah.
And you're never going to be strong enough to defeat them. The only way to be safe, it's like you said, walking with God. That's the only, that he's the only one who's going to keep you safe. There's nothing else that can help you or save you. Sometimes we wake up, we go to the gym, we eat good and we look good, we young, we feel good, and we feel indestructible. And that's not true. That's just like an illusion. Your life can just go south so fast you wouldn't even know it. And I know that. So that's why I try to walk with God for safety.
Yeah. You walk in, you walk in humility because you know that there's literally so much out there that can happen. And praise God that we almost have the cheat code, and the cheat code is knowing God and walking with God. And I know it almost feels like an oversimplified concept, but I really do feel like it is that simple, and we can overcomplicate it sometimes and think we need to do all
Because we think we're in control.
that part. Yeah.
We're really not. God is in control. So I think that's the going back to me with my anger issue. It's like when I get angry, it's because I think I'm in control.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to control things, and you can't.
Yep.
And that's why I get angry, is I want to control things and it's not in my reach. And it just seems that way, but it's not. And so how do you make because again, you know these things, right? How do you change the behavior, because your behavior is not what you're thinking, contradicts itself. So that's the problem I have right there. Addiction.
It's like Paul says in the Bible, he says, I know what I want to do, and I know what I don't want to do. So why do I do what I don't want to do? It's literally that. And I think that's the human struggle in one sentence. I feel like that's always going to be the tension that we face. And again, going back to that concept of getting so deeply rooted in our connection with God. And what that looks like practically is obviously spending time reading the word, praying, going to church, being a part of those things. And even to make it super practical, something you might try is like when you have that opportunity to lash out, remembering that in that moment, the anger is just information that you want to be in control. It's like in that moment, the fleshly nature of you wants to control this moment. Your kids aren't listening. You want to control that moment. And obviously there's a level of discipline that goes into it.
Right.
But in the ultimate grand scheme of things is going back to God is in control. And sure, we have a level of control over certain things and maintaining that understanding in that moment. And a simple thing you could do is like, so in cognitive behavioral therapy, it's like bringing a practical thing to a much bigger concept. There's this concept called, or maybe it's NLP, one of the two. But there's this concept it's called anchoring. Are you familiar with that concept?
Yeah, for me.
Okay, I might have shared it with you last time even, but it's a concept that I thought is really interesting because Again, our brain's goal is to keep us comfortable and safe and have the appearance of control. We were designed in a way that helps us keep autonomy and function as humans. But in doing so, a lot of times our brains will remember a situation, and instead of it being present, it's like we're going back to a memory of what's familiar. So for instance, there's a situation where you might get angry at your kids or your spouse or any situation. And in that moment, it's present day, but your brain's understanding in the way that we've been wired almost takes you back to a situation where that was the action. So we have to rewire our brain and create new neural pathways. That's what it's called. But the beautiful thing is, again, the beauty of the brain and how I feel like God's designed the brain is our brains are what's known as neuroplasticity. So it means that our brains are able to create new pathways. And the way to do that is to retrain it. And a way to retrain it is to give it what's known as an anchor, like something that's like a physical motion. And it sounds really woo-woo and silly, but a physical motion to snap you out of reacting and give your nervous system and your body time to recognize what's really going on. Maybe the next time that you feel overwhelmed and you have an opportunity to either lash out or have a moment of being calm, maybe you could do some kind of motion to yourself. Some people will put their hand on their chest, and it's like it's almost like a form of self-soothing. You ever heard like when you're a baby, you will do this and it helps you calm down? It's a similar concept. Maybe it's like you're about to lash out, be angry at someone. You just put your hand on your chest for a moment. You can take a deep breath and you can be like, God is in control. And it's in that moment of interrupting the cycle of what your brain's used to. Over time, it'll rewire that to realize that you're not being threatened. And because you may not have full control, you can overcome the behavior. Does that make sense?
The tricky part would be knowing when to do it, like at the right time to do it right before. Because I notice there's like, when it does happen, it's a few seconds difference where you can just think and say and change your behavior, and not. There's only I feel like there's a few, not always, not all the time. It is only those few times, but those few times is enough, to have a bad day.
Yeah. I think too with it is getting in the practice of doing it the moment you feel the conflict arise, even if it's too early, or say like you've had a long day. For instance, like you came in, you said you've been at a super busy day, and maybe you were to leave here and you see your family, and maybe it's chaos. Like they made a huge mess, and you see the chaos, you see it, and in that moment, you're like, okay, I realize I've been here before. You do whatever you need to do to kind of get you in that moment. But then if we're human, we're going to slip up sometimes. If it happens and you blow up, like how quickly noticing, oh man, it happened again. You know that moment. And instead of beating yourself up with guilt in that moment, you can recognize it. You can make amends. You can apologize for the situation. Be like, that's not who I am. And it's like, even the apology for the other person, it's twofold. Because in that moment that you go and blow up on your kid. This is just the example. Again, it's like trying to use one example to cover many things. But say you have a moment where temper rises and you say something you shouldn't, you raise your voice. The moment after it happens, as soon as you recognize that's not what I want to do, then you reinforce the belief in the identity that's not you. And it's doing that over time, you're going to rewire the fact that I'm not an angry person. I'm not someone who yells at my wife and kid. I'm compassionate. I'm calm. Obviously, I'm the leader of the house, but I don't have to do that with extremes. That's another way to kind of view it.
That's a good one. I like it. Yeah. And I think that's important to to have those tools.
And it's getting those tools.
Just getting those tools.
And with that tool, like it's like the first step of those tools, if I look at it from the framework that I've been developing, is that first R in the red print framework is recognize. And what we've done today is before you can change something, you have to recognize there's something to change.
Right.
And for you, that recognize step is there's times that my temper is too high. And like for you to already be in that space is great. So now you've got the first step. And then the next step would be the reorganize. And that's where we have a plan in place. So you're like, okay, now I have a tool. My tool is if I feel myself getting overwhelmed or feel like I'm losing control, I can have a moment with God, talk to him, be like, all right, God, I'm gonna need you to help me in this moment because I really want to be this way. And it's in doing so that you're rewiring. And that gets into the next step, which is rediscovering. Because at the heart of all this, a lot of times we don't live reality. We live our perception of reality. And deep in that, whether it's intentional or unintentional, we start living a story that's not necessarily the truth about us. Like, obviously, being a guy, we're rambunctious, like you mentioned, like you grew up with a lot of men and you don't necessarily know, you said yourself, like you don't know how to
be gentle,
but you do.
Because
if we look at it from like a God perspective, like if we look at the life of Jesus, Jesus was both lion and the lamb. Like he was the lion that was able to flip tables, which was necessary, but he also was the lamb that was able to comfort people and heal people and walk with those that have been, like I think about the woman that was caught in adultery. That moment's so cool because if we look at this story, Jesus rolls up on to some Pharisees and they're basically about to stone this lady because she was caught in adultery. And Jesus comes up to the situation and he basically says, you that haven't sinned can cast the first stone. So he's calling out their pride and their arrogance to think that they're better than this person who has fell short. So in that moment, Jesus kind of stepped into line and he was like, listen, dude, if y'all haven't screwed up, then you can stone her. But clearly, y'all are all human. Everyone in that moment was human. They had no firepower to do that. But not just in that moment was he being bold against those that were coming at this lady, but then he was also gentle enough to tell her, your sins have been forgiven, to be both and. And I think that's a big challenge as men, especially from a cultural and a worldview. Man, this is a whole other podcast, but we can share it. And the idea of as men, if we're not careful, it's like, I look at it almost like a pendulum, like a swinging pendulum. If we're extremely bold and passionate and aggressive, that's no good for anyone else, right? You would say you step into this over aggression where you're not able to fully be present for your kids and your wife, your girls and your wife. And then if you swing the opposite and you're only ever gentle, at what point if your wife and kids needs to protect her, if you're only gentle, how can you protect them? So it's like there's a pendulum swinging, and it's almost like our goal is to hold the tension between two. And again, it's not theory, it's action. Understanding and discerning, and I think walking with God to give us that wisdom to be like, okay, there's a time that I need to be stern, and there's a time that I need to be gentle, and understanding the two. But again, we're not going to do that overnight, but that's the beauty of the progress and the process. And if I'm willing to learn the tools, have the tools for what it takes, then I'll be able to align with God and what he's doing in my life, in our lives, and walk with him. And in doing so and walking with him, he's changing my behavior.
What do you mean by walking with him?
Walking with him, I would say it's a point of like obviously reading the Bible and praying and seeking what he is saying about my life or about your life, or whoever is watching in those situations. Like, again, to use your situation as an example. So you have an opportunity to raise your voice or get angry at your daughter, your wife, whatever, because of a certain situation. So in that, we can just blindly react out of whatever it is, out of overwhelm, out of the need to control. Or we can look at what is God said about that, whether it's scriptures that have said where he stands on this, or whether it's praying to him and learning what he's saying. I think in doing so, and again, it's like a both and, because when we read God's word, we begin to understand his character and who he is. And if our ultimate goal was to walk with him and to be more like him, at least that's my goal. I want to be more like God because he's our creator and we were made in his image. So why would we not want to be like him? So in doing so, yeah, it's like, that's what I kind of mean by walking with
So
him.
what I'm hearing is, correct me if I'm wrong. So you're saying it's kind of when you're a little kid and there's like a superhero on TV and you're like, oh, I want to be like Spider-Man. And then you start like mimicking like
Similar,
throwing
yeah.
so it's kind of like,
Similar, yeah.
kind of like that. So having a superhero and by mimicking Jesus, God, you become more like him. And those things like being gentle and bold rub off on you.
Yeah. And it's like it's in Galatians, I want to say. It talks about what's known as the fruits of the Spirit. And I think there's 7. There's a few of them. And it's patience, kindness, joy, peace, self-control. And it's like those fruits or attributes of God. And for so many of us as humans, and the way that we almost want to have a plan of action, like how can I cultivate, like how can I make these fruit in my life? And what the challenge is with that is you can try to do all the behavior thing, but if your heart's not pure, if the intentions behind what you're trying to do behavior wise isn't pure, then what's the point? And it's like when we abide in Christ, like I love that concept because it's literally like we're the vine, he's the branches. And it's like that concept of like when we're connected to the source, then we have all the power we need. But that's not going to happen if we're disconnected to the source and we try to do it on our own strength. And I feel like that's what gets us so frustrated, because it's like we look and we're like, man, why can't I not yell at my kids? Or like, why can't I do the things that I know I should do? And
because you can't do it alone.
Exactly. Yeah. And it requires that connection, because it's like at the end of the day, we were never created to be Superman. We were never created to be God, but we try so hard sometimes to be God and
do it alone.
Yeah. And to do it without him. And anything apart from him is so meaningless. It's like there's no point. I know that's super deep, and a lot of people that may be watching this that aren't necessarily believers of Jesus and of God, of what we've encountered, it might be hard to understand. But man, yeah, there's nothing like it. Understanding that concept.
And I'm not a philosopher, obviously, but as a thinker, like just me thinking, that's one thing that I like, that I enjoy going to church, is to listen to the word and it makes sense. And it was 2,000 years ago, and then the Old Testament is longer than that. And you can still apply it to this day.
That's real.
And it's like,
it's truly mind blowing.
Yeah.
If you really think about it, something that was written that long ago, because it's alive. And that, I don't think that, and that's a crazy concept for the average person to grasp. But like when I read the Bible or I hear a message about the Bible, it speaks in a way that's both personal and communal, which is baffling to me, because you could be reading the same verse or hearing the same message, me and you both, in the same service, or the same church gathering, and that same message speak differently to both of us, but be exactly what we need to hear in whatever season we're in. And it's just like, that's God. That's the only, it feels so unexplainable. We know that's, and yeah, I agree. As someone who likes to think and mull over certain things, it's just, yeah, it's such a
Yeah, I think you mentioned earlier there's a mystery
yeah,
to it. And I think that's going back to you're not in control. You're not gonna understand it all, and just make peace with that.
yeah. That's a big portion of all this, was getting to the space of making peace that you're not going to understand it all.
Yeah, and I think there's, I guess, in that sense, I do have faith.
Yeah. So see?
Because I don't know what's the reason why it's a mystery. But even though I've seen a lot of things, and I do know there's like a spiritual.
But can you logically explain what you've seen?
No.
So behind that,
so I do have faith.
And there's belief.
Yeah.
And like, I love this concept, like my pastor was sharing recently. And it's the idea. And that's why I was like really digging into the knowing thing. Because I feel like a lot of what we do as humans, the way that it was put was like, we must first know, and our knowing will shape our belief, which shapes our practice, like how we walk out life. Like practice isn't just like your spiritual, like your church practice. Think of like your life as a whole. And that's what we think is like the flow. Like we must understand and know first for the other to follow. But the concept is like, it starts with the belief of, or having the faith of, this is, for the aspect of God, it's like, this is who God said he is. So I'm going to believe him at what I understand that he is. Not even understand, but like what he says he is. And in doing that belief, it affects the practices that I do, the way that I walk out things. And in doing that, it shapes what I know. And it's like, we almost want to do the flip. Yeah, do the flip. Yeah. And that's why I was like interested to see what you meant by know. Because like, obviously you know, because you've seen things. But even in those things you've seen, they're not explained.
Right.
But those things, you've seen those things in a way have shaped your belief in your faith. And your belief in your faith shapes out your practice. Like you mentioned, yeah, I've got the Spirit of God. I'm going to church, or I'm reading his word, or I'm praying. And in doing both of those things, it deepens your knowledge of it. And again, and that's, I feel like that's the dark side of being a philosopher or a thinker, is if we're not careful, we'll get stuck in the thinking. But it goes back to what you said, is like the application and the practice of it. And it's, if we can't apply what we're learning, then there's no, what's the point?
Yeah. And going back to what I was given as an example with Stephen Covey and the 7 Habits, that he was saying, it's like, you are all those things. You're just not spiritual. You're just not physical or mental or emotional. It's all together. And so I think that's another thing that a lot of people struggle with is that maybe they want to give into, they want to be spiritually correct in their faith, but then they don't treat their physical body the same way. So it's not congruent.
Yeah.
Their actions with one thing with another. All things has to be congruent.
Like all the layers.
And that's why I like church in the Bible and following Jesus, because it's congruent. He tells you, hey, take care of your body like a temple.
Literally.
Your mental the same way, emotionally the same way. It's everything that he's saying, it's congruent. And that's why I see the spiritual like the glue. That takes care of all of it together.
Yeah, no, that's real. And like you said, because apart from him, what are all those things by themselves?
Nothing.
They're not cohesive.
You're right.
because they're going to fall apart and separate.
Yeah.
Because if you're only ever taking care of your body.
I done that before.
Yeah, same.
I done
I feel like we're all susceptible to it.
It's because I'm very logical. I do things in order. I do lists. I'm very, I organize things in a certain way that has to make sense to me. You look at my calendar, I have different blocks for different things. And it's like, okay, this makes sense. And so the same thing, I try to, and I had a really hard time with this concept. And I'm trying to do, okay, I can't be a good disciple of God if my body's not in shape. So I was like, I'm going to put these other things aside for now. And I'm going to focus on going to the gym, eating healthy, like doing all these things, making money, because that's materialistic, that's physical. So I'm going to focus on that. And then I focus on that. And then everything else will start to fall apart. And I was like, what the heck? I was like, and then like I will have problems at home. And it's, you know what? I need to stop worrying about the physical and put my family first. I need to be emotionally there. And then I start focusing on that. And then everything starts falling apart, gaining weight. I start, not paying attention at work. And so I try different things. I try being mental, just reading more books. If I know how everything works, then I'd be able to. And so until I put God first, that's when everything else. So I try every way that you can think of how to put physical first, or put mental first, put emotional first. So the last thing that I did, which it should have been the first one, it's spiritual. Do the spiritual and put it first. And if once I did that, the physical, the emotional, the mental, everything started falling into place.
That's so good. Yeah.
And it was like, the answer was right there all along.
Yeah. And I think it's also kind of to piggyback off of that is that it's the concept of living an integrated life, not a divided life. And that may sound like a weird statement, but like you said, like it's almost like we try to put things in boxes, or like even before I broke it down like wearing different hats. It's like if there was like 4 hats on the table, it's like my spiritual life, my family life, my work, my fitness, like all these different hats. And when I'm in those, I put on that hat, but I have to take off the other one. And it's like I almost thought that like I needed to take them all off, have one on at a time, because if I wore all these hats, I'd look like a goober. But the truth is, like, it's not hats, it's not compartment, it's integrated. Like the life is all, and like you said, it's seek first the kingdom of God and all will be added. But it's in doing so that it integrates all of them. And that's another, like, even like the work-life balance myth. Like always people are like, I need to balance work and life. But it's, if you make the main thing, which is like your relationship with God, and in doing so with the relationship being with God, it helps put the other ones into perspective. Because if we don't do that, then it's like you said, it's like we're almost chasing to put which one needs to be top priority. And when we have it that way, it's less of trying to get a list and more so being integrated, if that makes sense. I kind of went in the weeds there for a minute, but hopefully that kind of brought it home there.
Yeah.
Good stuff, dude. I love this conversation. I'm glad we had this setting, like sitting in the chair, getting kind of comfortable.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. And that's what I was saying earlier. Like, I don't want to have a specific topic.
Yeah.
Because then you don't get a chance to just like wander off about things like.
Because they're good. It's good to follow those sometimes.
Yeah.
That's good, man. And I open this by saying like giving someone an experience of a coaching session. But I like to say that like a lot of coaching, one-on-one coaching experiences are very similar to what we have. Like it's very much a conversation around something. Obviously, if there's a specific problem we're trying to circle back to, for instance, we did start talking about the anger issue and we did bring it back home, but there's moments where they all speak to one another. It's funny, I was watching this one video today and he was basically talking about in the area of finance, but he was saying he read all these books that's helped him in finance. But the funny thing was, some of the main books that helped him in finance were the ones that are around things that weren't even related to finance. And it's like what we just mentioned there is like the main piece I feel like of all this is the glue, is that spiritual aspect of our relationship with God. And when we get that in order, that glue, then the other things begin to make sense. Because it's, if I'm madly in love with my creator, God, and I have that relationship with him, then why would I not be compelled to take care of my body? Or like, why would I not be compelled to take care of the family that he's entrusted me with, or the spouse that I entrusted with? Or like, why would I not want to run with the gifts that he's given me and be profitable? Because like gaining wealth can be something that's used to make a difference, because ultimately money is just a tool. And if you have the right intention behind that tool, then it can be used for something. But if money is the only goal and that's your number one, then you're like, it's never going to be enough. But then if God's your number one and you're like, God, how can I use the gifts that you've given me and steward this well? Then you're like, this is plenty. And that's all. And you see some, and again, it goes back to the Bible being so congruent and the fact that it's so to today from every aspect. Like you said, physical, like financial, like your mental. It's crazy. But dude, this has been a great talk. I enjoyed it. I don't want to take too much more of our time. I know we had to like re-record, and I want to be mindful of everyone's time here. But dude, yeah, it's been good.
Yes.
I appreciate you having me on.
No, I appreciate you having me here in your space.
Yeah, definitely.
And yeah, it was a great talk. I love it.
For sure. Yeah, I'm excited to see how this comes out.
All right.
It's put together. Well, all right then now.
Thank you.
Welcome. Peace.
Bye, everybody.